After the series of boycotts last year, ranging from Target to the infamous Budlight, you'd think that marketing executives would understand that the gamble of replacing women with trans-identified men does not pay off. Evidently, though, they haven't, as the most recent example can be seen in the RipCurl controversy. Bethany Hamilton was the first female athlete I had ever known of, at all. I'd never even seen or heard of a female athlete before. I saw both the movie Soul Surfer and a copy of her book that I reread until the spine went soft. If you're not familiar with her, she was the victim of a shark attack at age 13, which resulted in the loss of her left arm. She returned to surfing just a month later and has since continued to compete professionally and has made a career out of being an emotional speaker. Her story is incredibly inspiring, as for many the loss of a limb would mean the end of a sporting career and a major change in their lives. However, she continued doing what she loved, and it was so important to me as a child to see a girl compete professionally with a disability. Although diabetes is not exactly the same, I had often been held back from participating in sports due to fears of low blood sugar or other complications. And just seeing someone go so far with such an obvious hardship was just amazing to me. I would argue that few could not see the bravery and determination she exhibited in continuing her career, and yet, due to comments against the inclusion of men in the women's surfing category, she became yet another woman subject to verbal abuse and hatred by the trans community and its allies.
I have a question. How tolerant, loving, and inclusive is it to bring a stuffed shark to a book reading hosted by a shark attack survivor in order to mock them? Because that's exactly what this here activist did. So Christian surf legend Bethany Hamilton and 12-time All-American swimmer Riley Gaines hosted an event where they read books to the next generation in order to inspire young girls to keep going after their dreams. With Gaines reading from her book Happy No Snakes Day that teaches young girls to be brave and stand out, and Bethany Hamilton reading from her book Surfing Past Fear is a book about a little girl facing her fears and overcoming adversity, which mirrors Bethany's own story of going from someone who was attacked by a shark and losing their arm while surfing to accomplishing above and beyond what many would have thought was possible. Now, Riley Gaines has been on the front lines as someone supporting women and girls in their sport, which comes after her facing what she did while competing as a swimmer. And for being as vocal as she has, people not only attack her online, they go after her when she does speeches at college campuses. Now, as a father of 3 daughters, I'm someone who appreciates Riley Gaines standing up for women and girls. And I also appreciate Bethany Hamilton, who I think has stood on her principles as a Christian and as a woman has stood up for women and girls sport to the point of losing a business relationship she's had for decades without saying anything remotely controversial. So I find something like this aimed at somebody like Bethany Hamilton not only mean-spirited, but horrible, and shows the character of those who oppose her. You're gonna face adversity when standing for the truth, but be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go.
As noted on Wikipedia, in January 2023, Hamilton announced that she would boycott all World Surf League events following their decision to allow transgender women to compete in the female category, provided they maintain a testosterone level below 5 nmol per liter for 12 months prior. Hamilton questioned whether hormone levels were a fair and accurate assessment of sex, stating that transgender athletes would have a different division created for them. She said that transgender women have a biological advantage that female surfers do not, stating, "We are seeing glimpses of male body dominance in women's sports like running, swimming, and others." Hamilton said that she believes that many of the women currently on tour agree with her but are too afraid of being ostracized to speak out. Hamilton's stance received support from some but was also criticized by others as transphobic. The response to her so-called transphobia was a plethora of cruel sentiments that she should be dead, often referring to the shark which disabled her and noting that it should have finished the job. Bethany was a previous banned advocate for RipCurl and was let go last year after noting her disagreement with allowing men into women's sports. Not long after, the Aussie brand made more than waves after an Instagram post late last week as part of its women's Meet Me Local Heroes campaign introduced us to Sasha, a West Australian water woman who loves the freedom found in surfing, disconnecting from the mainstream, and the feeling of dancing on constantly changing waves. Users were surprised to find that this water woman was actually Ryan Egan, who'd won the men's longboard title in 2019 before he started competing against females. Sasha Lowerson, as he goes by now, sparked controversy in the surf world by winning a women's championship in 2022, just as several international sports bodies were making a move away from trans participation.
oh my God, how has surfing influenced my life? How has it not? When the sun's out and it's offshore and we've got a southwest swell running, I don't think there's a job that I'd keep. I believe it's one of the only sports where we get to perform a certain dance on a changing platform, a moving dance floor. Every wave's different, and I think that's what's kept me surfing the 35, 40 years of my surfing life. Yeah, I love the feeling of being able to fly and the freedom, just being able to be out and disconnect from that mainstream. I think I was born a surfer, to be honest.
It may not be easy, but it's possible to be an openly trans athlete and to be a spokesperson for what is right, he said. The backlash has led to the ad being removed and a lukewarm apology sent, but consumers have a longer memory than that. Just as Budlight has continued to have a massive decrease in sales, it is likely that RipCurl will continue to face decreased sales and boycotts. I find it interesting that so many companies continue to use trans-identified males to represent women, especially in fields like sports, where there are already so few roles for women to get sponsorships or make money. Likely, this is attributed to younger marketing executives who advise companies incorrectly based on the insular opinions they were exposed to at universities and in liberal-leaning cities. One mustn't forget that just because the group you're familiar with supports those topics, it doesn't mean that the greater world does. In fact, 69% of people say that transgender athletes should only be allowed to compete on sports teams that correspond with the sex they were assigned at birth. So, why gamble on the 31% of people who do support trans inclusion in women's sports? As shown by the Bud Light boycott, they're not the ones where the money is. This, dear viewers, is where we part. As I mentioned before, I'm a big fan of Bethany. I still have that book somewhere in my parents' house. I'm not a Christian, and I don't believe in religion or any of that stuff, but I've always found her to be such a strong woman to use faith to get through this difficult time for her, and then to continue competing professionally. And she's still a world-level surfer with children. Like, it's amazing to me, and they think that a 40-year-old man in a bikini is a better optics for them. First off, they're not the ones who are typically buying bikinis or buying surfboards for women or whatever. They're not the ones buying female things. And the ones who do is a very small minority. So you're risking what? Making a very small minority happy so that you can piss off the larger amount? It just seems like such a very obvious thing to not do. But I to be honest, I think marketing in general has been clueless for the past couple years in a variety of categories. But I digress. If you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them in the comment section down below, and I will see you guys next time.